So we're here at the CCA workbench, and Dave, you know, everybody loves to catch a wahoo. It's a beautiful looking fish, really fast. One of my reasons why I really like them is because it's one of my favorite sushi fish to eat.
Right. Oh yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
anyway, how
Well,
are we
you know,
gonna
with that,
catch 'em?
you know, the narrow bars and their silver skin and that little tail. I mean, they are made to go fast. So usually, you know, they eat fast things. One of their favorite things to eat is little tunas and blue runners, two little fish that go really fast. They also like to. We also like to use gaudy colored stuff. A lot of mylar stuff to get their attention because you know most of the ocean is a big empty blue. You know, and we gotta get these wahoo to see what we got out there, because that's how they feed. Is, you know, they see stuff and then they go to it. They don't use their nose to smell stuff, and they got these razor sharp jaws. It's probably the sharpest natural thing that I've ever come across. I mean, you can, if you have a pair of wahoo jaws on Naked and Afraid, you can cut yourself a hut, whatever you want. I mean, these things are razor sharp. You can leave your machete at home,
Right.
But because what they do is when there's a bait going along in the water, they like to come out and just swim through the bait. And usually it's from below. You know, they'll come and go straight up in the air and they take the tail right off the bait.
Okay, now, I don't mean to interrupt, but
No
I
worries.
gotta ask you a question, stop you at that point. Is one of the reasons why the favorite color or seem to be really dark? So do you think because they're down deep, they can silhouette something that's dark against the blue sky?
Correct. That is one reason. And not only that, a lot of the things they're eating, like the little bonitas and the other stuff, are kind of that same color. You know, they got that dark purplish color. So that's what you like to have out there.
All right, so what are some of the lures that we're using these days?
Well, we got, you know, a lot of guys will use these kind of lures, you know, a tube, a jet, or something like that, that'll go straight and stay in the water, you know, but that's what you want. And you also, a lot of times when we try to go fast, we'll use a big trolling weight. And the trolling weights will get the baits, you know, down deeper and allow us to go a lot faster. There's two different ways to think about it. You know, a lot of guys like to do the high-speed trolling, and that's when you're going 12, 14 knots, and that pretty much eliminates just about every other type of fish except for wahoos, you know.
Right.
But so I like to go a little slower, but if you're going to go real fast, you have to use things like trolling weights or even a planer. You can't troll as fast with a planer, but if you have a downrigger or a big trolling weight, you can get down deeper.
So the reason why they've got the steel cable through the weight, Dave?
Well, in case he comes and eats the weight. You know, if you're going along and you're going pretty fast as well, something comes up and tries to eat that weight, you're in terrible peril.
Well, I noticed that this one's got some bites in it. you
Right?
know?
Yeah,
It's kind
exactly.
of cool. So I guess it do happen.
Exactly. You know, when you're trying to get these fish, wahoo tend to congregate around reefs, ledges, big wrecks and stuff like that, and you're going to want to be around those things, and especially when you want to have current. You want to have a really good current coming across there, and most of the time those fish will be behind that object, behind it. You know, with the current going this way, they're going to be behind it. So, but a lot of times they won't bite if you keep going straight across them. You have to start, you know, coming at all different angles, and until you find the way they like that bait coming across that structure. And once you find that spot, pretty much every time you go across there in that same direction, and they're, you know, swimming with their heads into the current, boom, 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 and then you just keep going around and making that same thing. And if you're not if you're not liking to use lures, you can actually use live blue runners and stuff like that. You know, you get around one of these big wrecks out there and you catch a blue runner, and then you put it right back down. You know, put it, you know, 50 feet down, and
So
just
you'd put
bump
him
it.
on some type of stinger rig like this, Dave?
Well, you could, you know, I would use a live bait and put it through a bridle, you know, and
Okay.
put it through his nose, just like you would for a blue marlin or something. And then you could put a stinger on it.
Okay,
You
I
could
got
put a
it.
stinger on it back there and let him swim with that. If you give him enough slack so that he can come up and take the tail off that blue runner, because that's what he's going to do.
Cut a
He's gonna-
propeller
He's
off
going to
so
try
he
to
can't swim off.
Yeah, and when that happens, if you just go ahead and drop that bait back, even if you're trolling a lot of times, when you have one of those wahoos come up and slam one of these plugs or something, and he doesn't stick, you know, he's not pulling drag immediately, drop it back. Because he thought, oh man, I came and nailed that thing and took its tail off, and then he'll swim back around and try to get its head, the rest of the bait. And if it's still going at 8 knots this way, he ain't gonna find it, because he's gonna
Right.
circle around. Hey, where'd it go? He's still going.
Right.
You know. So a lot of times with those baits and even with the plug, if you start dropping that sucker back immediately, as soon as it, you know, it gets that one slam like that, it's usually a a vicious strike.
Yes.
Big slam, and then nothing. Drop it back. Keep going
Well, you
straight.
gotta be ready to go if we're gonna do that.
You do. You gotta keep going and drop it back and have your hands with a pair of gloves on there. And if he eats it, you just ease it up. Just ease the drag up, and you won't get that backlash.
Hook himself.
Yeah, you won't get that backlash.
So what else?
Well, when we're using these baits, I like to use, like I said, I got all these Mylar stuff, and I'm
Right.
using a number 9 wire, which is about a 100-pound test. And you can tell I like to use these long shank hooks. This is a 8/0,
Right.
and it's got a long shank. And what I do use that long shank for is I want to get the hook as far back in my ballyhoo as I can because of that tail biting thing. And when I'm all the way back here, and then I add that little
Stinger
extra
rig.
stinger on there,
Yeah.
little 3/0 treble
Now
hook,
you're
double
covered.
strength. If he comes and tries to bite my tail, he's nailed. And I like to use cable as well. This is if you can't tie wire, if you're not good with wire, you can get yourself some crimps and use some really good supple cable on a rig that'll go straight, like these mold crafts. This is a wide range, which means this thing will go from 4 knots to 15 knots and stay in the water. And it goes straight as an arrow. And wahoo love to eat these things. They're not very expensive. And you put one on a nice cable, he can't bite through the cable. You're going to catch a lot of wahoos on that.
So let me ask you, Dave, would it be possible if you're a guy that wants to troll 6 to 8, 9 knots, you could run these guys up on the top or just below the surface?
For sure.
And then you could potentially put in your spread
Yeah.
some deep diving Rapalas so you could actually fish
I caught-
maybe 4 lures at the
I
time,
catch
correct?
most of my wahoos going between 5 and 8 knots. I usually don't go that fast because I'm not, like I said, I don't want to not catch all those other fish and only target wahoo. I'm usually not doing that. Wahoo is just one of the many fish that I want to be catching. So I'm using, all my other stuff to catch dolphins and tunas and whatever we'll eat. But I always have wire out because of the wahoo.
Well, Bree,
Because he's the one I really want to catch.
Yeah, I know, me too.
He's delicious.
Good job over here. And Bree, I want to tell you, after this weekend of shooting a Sportsman's Adventure episode,
Yes.
he is a catcher. Make no mistake about it.
I'm a
He's a
winder.
catcher.
That's for sure.
You did a great job.
You catch, you don't fish.